Pledge of allegiance.
Flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good afternoon. Wow, standing room only. Been a while. Not that we feel neglected or anything. So welcome to the Board of Directors monthly meeting, February. And we're going to do our usual riveting board meeting, discussing the board's business. And then at the end of this meeting, we're going to have a committee report, which is going to devolve into a community discussion. Now, the discussion will be still within the board meeting, so we're still going to be running on Robert's rules. And I know all of you will be respectful of your friends and neighbors and allow them to speak without interruption. And I'm just going to tell you about my little experience recently as an attendee at a Zoom meeting, where every time somebody started talking in the room, in a private conversation, I couldn't hear anything. So I just want you all to keep that in front of your minds today. Silence your cell phones if you will, and let's get to it. So Paul, can you call the roll, certify the quorum, and offer proof of notice?
Okay, we have Matt Barber, Karen Gilmartin, Steve Burke, Nathaniel Monks, Pat Kepke, and Joe Mulcahy present, and Margie Cassidy present via Zoom. So we have a full quorum for meetings, and notice was posted in accordance with statute.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the prior meeting's minutes?
Motion.
Second. Second favor. Aye. Okay, so as you all know and are here to witness, today's meeting will feature a presentation by Brian McAdam, the chairman of the Pickleball Advisory Committee, considering alternatives for the placement and construction of more pickleball courts here at Pelican Marsh. These ideas that you're going to see today, and we're going to go through a bunch of them. Pretty much every idea that was suggested by anybody is going to be here for your viewing today, because we kind of felt that even if some of these ideas were clearly not appropriate for us, the community should see what's been proposed and understand why the board would make a decision about any of them. But several of these guys, Matt Barger, one of our board members, Mark Gerber, one of our residents, will be speaking about their ideas in conjunction with Brian's report. A little background on this. In 2020, the Long Range Planning Committee, you all may remember, did an extensive survey and study of attitudes toward amenities here at Pelican Marsh, and produced a report for the community and the board, which was the most extensive and rigorous report that had been done to date about the attitudes of the community toward amenities. At that time, the community wanted overwhelmingly a restaurant, and we took that as sort of job one on our thing to do when this board term began in 2021. We built the restaurant. The number two thing was improvements at the fitness center. You've got now our fitness center has been improved and will continue to be improved, I think, over the coming years. Right now, obviously, we have all new equipment in there, as many of you know. I see many of you there. It's pretty crowded right now because everybody is taking advantage of the new stuff, which is great. In future years, there will probably be some interior modifications in the community center and the area of the fitness center, giving us a little more room. But right now, this is where we stand with the fitness center. The third item, I mean, there were a couple of items that people wanted to talk about: a community pool, beach access, and these were, the board at the time believed that these just weren't tenable for us for obvious reasons. A lot of money, no room, and the beach access requires that someone who has access to the beach is willing to rent it to you, and this is somewhat problematic to get done here in Naples, especially these days. Next up on the list was more pickleball courts, and in the ensuing 3 years or so since this report came out, we've seen an explosion in the sport here at Pelican Marsh. And so we all kind of think that this is the next thing that we'd like to do. Now, I want to emphasize that today's discussion is just that. It's a discussion. It's a first step. It's a conversation between the board and the community about this issue. No board votes will be taken with regard to this matter. No decisions will be made about any of these options or any of the underlying principles that relate to it. So having said that, I think we're ready to get started, and I'm going to ask Paul for the foundation manager's report.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Activities really picked up here around the community center, with everyone taking advantage of all the activities and events we have scheduled. This increased activity also brings an issue. We're trying to find parking space during the day, with everybody here enjoying the activities. So if you're able to carpool with your friends, walk or ride your bike to the community center, that is appreciated. And if you do have to drive to the community center, we ask that you please park within the parking line so that every space can be utilized when parking. We've already noticed the past few weeks, a couple cars have taken up 2 spaces. So we appreciate you guys following those rules. As a reminder, this year also brings out many residents who are out biking and walking, jogging around Pelican Marsh and to the community. So when you're driving, please make sure that you and your guests are following both the speed limits and making full stops at all the stop signs. There have already been a few reports I've had, a couple close calls in the past few weeks where cars were speeding or not stopping at stop signs, which was almost near accidents happening. So please keep everyone safe this season and follow the speed limit and make stops at all the stop signs. We've noticed there are still quite a few residents who have not still registered for the new website at Pelican Marsh. So we encourage all residents to get registered on this new site so they can receive important emails and notices from the foundation, as well as sign up for events online and keep informed about everything that's happening in Pelican Marsh. And if you need help getting registered on the site, please contact the admin office and the staff will be happy to help you get there. Next week on Tuesday from 10 a.m. to noon, we have Comcast representatives here on site to answer questions about their services and products they offer. We'll be sending out an email actually tomorrow on this event with more details. So watch out for that email. And we're going to try to have another couple of events with Comcast over the season so people can come in and ask questions and get their questions answered. The packet for the Foundation's 2024 annual meeting scheduled on March 28th will be mailed out within the next few weeks. So watch out for this in the mail. When you receive this packet, please make sure you complete and return the enclosed proxy by the date indicated on the form. This limited proxy is needed to obtain the required quorum to hold the annual meeting and the election that will be held this year. Because this year we have 7 candidates that will be running for the 3 open board seats. Bios of the candidates that are running we already emailed them out to the membership, but we'll also have these bios posted on the website by Monday at the latest. We'll also be having a Meet the Candidates forum scheduled on March 1st. This is where you can come in, candidates will be there, and you can ask questions about the candidates to learn more about them. If you don't receive the packet we mail out for the annual meeting by the end of February, please contact the admin office so we can send out another one to you. Lastly, again, the staff appreciates everyone's support and help we've had throughout this busy season. And as always, we welcome comments and suggestions to make improvements where needed. So thank you for that. And that's my report. Any questions?
Thank you, Paul. I just want to mention before we switch into the treasurer's report that Paul mentioned that there's a Meet the Candidate forum on March 1st where the 7 people who will be running for 3 board spots will be available for you to question and to meet, to listen to. Questions that you have regarding this matter that we're talking about today can be asked at that meeting as well. And I encourage you to do that because these are 3 people who are going to be on the board the next board term, starting in April. Okay. Nathaniel, treasurer's report.
Hello, okay, I'm going to give a treasurer's report for January. On your screen, and those of you at home will be able to see on your screen also, along with me, the total operating surplus for January was $24,190, which is $13,251 better than we budgeted. Because it's a winter month, we do budget on purpose to have a surplus, but our surplus was almost, like over double what we expected it to be, mostly because of court sports, higher revenue. And also we got more interest than we budgeted and some estoppel income from people renting their houses, selling their houses. Operating expenses on January was on budget. Court sports results was nearly $9,000 better than budget. A lot of people are taking lessons right now. The coaches are super busy. Fitness results were about normal. Resales, home resales, we charge $750, $7,500 every time you sell a house. And so there were 4 instead of 3, so we were $7,500 above budget on the house resales. Page 2. I am sorry that these print is so small, and I don't think there's a way to make it huge, but we can make it bigger, because you guys are, some of you are really far back there. I'll use round numbers if you can't read it. We have our 3 accounts here on the screen. The beginning cash for the operating account. I'm gonna start with the operating account. This is the account we use to do our day-to-day expenses with, to pay our bills with, employees, etc. Our main account, and that's where your HOA fees go into. Our beginning cash, $482,000. And then our ending cash was $1.2 million because everyone's HOA fees are coming in. And looks like almost everybody's doing a good job of paying their HOA fees on time, and that will go up again next month. The replacement fund, now that fund is the fund what we call our reserve account, a replacement fund, and that fund gets all its money from the resale fees. The resale fees fully fund the replacement fund. It started out at $291,000. We have experts tell us exactly how much that we should put into that account every year. And so every year, this board makes the decision to put 100% of resale fees into that account until it's fully funded for the year. So right now, at the end of January, we had $326,000 in it, and that's because we're packing it pretty quickly. The other account you see on the screen is the capital fund. That is the second fund that gets all its money from the resale fees, and that is for improving amenities, such as adding pickleball. And so the capital account, you'll see at the top of the screen that it had $438,000 in it at the beginning of the year, and it went down instead of up. At the end of the month of January, it went down a tiny bit because we spent a tiny bit, but it's receiving no money yet because, as I just mentioned, the reserve account is getting all the income from the resale fees right now. Next page. Now this page breaks down the different areas where we spend money out of the operating account, the one where your HOA fees go into. If you can read these columns from where you're sitting, the first column on the left will show what we've actually spent this year and the income we've actually had this year from each of those divisions. And the budget is right beside it. That's how much we guessed early on what it would be. And then over to the far right, you can compare it with last year at this time. So in fitness, you can see right there in the top row, the surplus was $14,000 in fitness and just a little bit less than in 2023 January. The next one is court sports. You can see that the court sports actual income, the revenue, is almost $18,000, and we'd only budgeted $9 million. And we budgeted $9 million because $9 million was closer to what we did in the year before that. So it's just really bursting at the seams this year. Everyone's taking lessons from pickleball and tennis, buying T-shirts and things like that. That's very nice. So our deficit in the court sports is much smaller than we had estimated that it would be. You see below that our merchandise. Our merchandise revenues are $8,300 for January. Wow. And so that gives us a $3,700 surplus when we only estimated it to be $1,800. Great job up there. Social is where all these activities where you get all these emails about, hey, you can come do this or you can get tickets to that. And we try to get really close to breaking even on that, and we're doing a good job of that. she's keeping us well entertained. Activity centers total, you see the totals there, doing really good. Down at the very, very bottom, you see a box. Can you scroll down a little bit? Okay, you see a box there, and all of this, I want to remind everybody that all of this is on the website. So anything that I just kind of gloss over too quickly or didn't make sense, by all means, feel free to ask me later, ask Paul later, or just go to our website and you can read these slowly until they no longer blur. The food and beverage is the block at the bottom. That's the restaurant. You can see that what this really says is that we have budgeted this year to spend $85,000 or less. And so far we spent $0 in January. This is kind of what we expected would happen in January. Next page. The next page is about the resales, where we sell houses and collect money for that and put it to good work for you. There were 5 homes sold in January. They closed in January. One of them was just one of you Pelican Marsh residents moving around, upgrading, downsizing. So we had 4 fees because we don't charge you a second fee, and that's $30,000. And you'll see how that over on the bottom right, got that arrow there, and we're pushing all that into the reserve account. Next page. That was the end of that. And so that's January for you. We're off to a good start, guys.
Thank you, Nathaniel. Okay, section 9, new business, 9.1, approval of application for memorial plaque. Many of you probably know, we lost our friend Rocco Tamboro recently, and an application has been made to the board within the guidelines stipulated by our documents to put a memorial plaque out on one of the benches around the tennis courts, pickleball area, in memory of him. So I would like to ask for a motion to approve this memorial plaque.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And the motion carries.
Can I ask a question about that? Do we have a certain number of benches that still don't have plaques? Or
We have a few benches still on.
we do?
Yes.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah, in addition to Nathaniel's comment, we did, this board a couple of years ago thought about ways to memorialize our the residents that have been lost and passed on, and we came up with an idea to do memorial pavers. We actually had a couple of them made for a few residents that were never installed, and we're kind of working through that right now because we ran into the building of the restaurant, and it was just there was a lot of action out there in the patio area. So that's something we're thinking about, because sooner or later you run out of benches, right? And you don't want to stop recognizing people, and so we thought about a bunch of different ways to do this, and that one had a lot of traction. So we'll keep you posted as we work through that. Okay, 9.2, approval of the Design Review Committee written report. May I have a motion to approve the Design Review Committee written report as written?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And the motion carries. Okay, so now we come to, and that's our business here, basically. So now we come down to our committee report. Now, I'm going to just remind everyone that this is a large group, and everyone here is interested in what the speakers will have to say. We will recognize a person from the community who will come up and sit at the microphone here, will identify themselves and their neighborhood for the record, and also for the people on Zoom who are following this online. And it's, as I said earlier, it's just impossible to hear anything if there's a lot of chatter. So we're going to ask you to please try to minimize that. If you need to speak to someone, then please step out. Feel free to step outside. And as I said, we have a couple of residents here who are going to assist Brian in his delivery of his presentation to kind of illuminate a couple of these ideas that have been put forward. So and then afterwards, after the presentation, we will have the typical board member comment and resident, and that is going to be where we have our discussion. And I think we will probably be able to come back and look at pictures and stuff as people want to talk about things. People are gonna have a lot of questions. We're here to listen to you, you're here to listen to us, there'll be many questions asked and answered today, I'm sure. Without further ado, Brian, would you like to start your presentation?
Sounds good. Oh, you want me up here or?
Yeah.
I might remind everyone that there's a lot of people watching on Zoom, and they can only hear the people who are talking in the microphones. So if, a lot of times people like to shout out a question or something like that, the people at Zoom will have no idea what's going on if we do that.
Good. Everyone here okay?
Let me get loaded up.
Yeah, it's, I usually move when I present, but it's good. So it's nice to see so many interested people here. I thought they were here to listen to your treasury report, but, probably other topics they want to talk about. Steve mentioned I am the chairperson of the Pickleball Advisory Committee. Interesting enough, I'm also a very avid, tennis player, which puts me in a little bit of a unique position to try to facilitate, this discussion. If we want to just go, Paul?
1 second. Trying to find it. There it is.
This is nineties tech we're talking about here.
Some of what I might mention might be a little redundant to what Steve opened with, so I'll try to gloss over that as quickly as possible. Good. Hear me in the back? Okay. Did we win today? Okay, you want to go to the next slide?
Yep.
Okay, once again, why are we here today? You've read in community newsletters, you've heard during different board meetings, Steve reiterated today. Adding additional pickleball amenities is something we've been looking at pretty hard over the last year or so. What we want to do today is really just communicate the ideas that have been shared. A lot of which behind the scenes, there's been a lot of work done behind the scenes, researching different options. Share that information, collaborate and discuss. We are not making decisions today, okay? All we're trying to do is level set the entire community of where we're at and really solicit what additional ideas and suggestions we have, and then build a framework that we can move forward somehow within a time frame that we can deliver a solution sometime soon. Next slide. So we'll talk a little bit about pickleball trends. We'll talk a little bit about the parking challenges that we've been looking at. And then we're going to dig into the ideas. And in addition to the two individuals that you mentioned, there's a couple other people who have brought ideas that we invite to come up to the mic as we go through them and add any thoughts they might have as well. And then we'll just talk about what those next steps might be. Next slide. So this probably comes to no surprise. Pickleball continues to be the fastest growing sport in America. Close to 37 million people now playing pickleball. We won't go through all the different comments here. Everyone can Google, a lot of different reads in terms of the impact of pickleball on communities, the impact on resale value and so forth. But basically what I hear from realtors I talk to is people aren't asking, do you have pickleball anymore? They're asking, how much pickleball do you have? That's part of their decision process. Next slide. And that certainly has translated within Pelican Marsh. This looks at our trend of pickleball players for the past several years. You may recall that we put the pickleball courts in November of 2019. And from that point, we're up to about 760 players that we currently have, right? Quite a rapid growth. When you look at that, in addition to the tennis players we have, and take into account those players that play both, we have about 1,000 residents who play some sort of court sports. And that adds some stress to the pickleball courts. Those of you who see the clock, I don't know what time are we now. If you sit next to a pickleball player at 2 o'clock, you'll hear an alarm go off. That's the time they're booking courts for the following week. By 2:02 on many days, courts are booked up. That's how fast we turn over.
you see that the capacity has increased from about 45% a couple years ago, up to greater than 80% of where it is today. The courts are very, very busy. It creates challenges in trying to organize our round robins and our open plays. And as I said, it's difficult sometimes to book courts. People are limited to booking courts mostly in afternoons and evenings if they just want to play with their individual friends as opposed to an organized play. Instruction's also somewhat limited, focusing on the afternoons. And we now have 7 different pickleball travel teams. And I know when it rains, it's hard to reschedule those matches, much less scheduling to begin with. Next slide. So for some people, this might be a little redundant, but from a parking perspective, going back to the fall of 2022, the Pickleball Advisory Committee formally requested that the foundation board look at alternatives for pickleball for adding additional capacity. And as Steve mentioned, this was something that was on their radar already that they were giving thought to. You may recall that between the fall and the spring of 23, the board was pretty busy focusing on our restaurant and resolving whatever issues we had related to our restaurant and getting our new restaurateur up and running. But by the spring of 2023, we were exploring different on-site solutions for parking to allow not only for pickleball, but also for gym growth. In the summer of 2023, the parking consultant that we were using advised us to step back a little bit and to go back to Collier County to see if our current variance for the parking spots that we need to support our different amenities was sufficient to add additional pickleball courts. That process took, what, Steve, about 6 months? Yeah. But lo and behold, come November, we did get permission from Collier County to add up to 3 pickleball courts and 500 square feet of additional indoor space. And that kind of brings us to where we are today. Next slide. So what we want to do is we want to share all the ideas that have been brought up and discussed in some manner. Some of these they all have pros and cons, to be perfectly honest. We're going to let the individuals who brought up these ideas discuss them among us. And as Steve said, we can have some additional questions at the end. One thing I just want to point out at this point, when we talk about cost estimates, you're going to see words like low cost, moderate cost, high cost. When we think of low cost, we're thinking about something that's under the $250,000 threshold that doesn't require a special assessment. Once you get above that, we probably would have to consider a special assessment in terms of moving forward with the project. Okay. I don't think for any of the moderate or high costs we have per se firm estimates, but we have general guidance from people's experience about the relative cost. Okay, so let's dig into it. Option 1 is raising and rebuilding our pro shop and bathrooms. We have another slide following this as well. So basically what we're saying is take down our existing pro shop and bathrooms and put 2 additional pickleball courts here and build a new bathroom and storage area next to it. Now, when you think about that from a pros and cons perspective, we're not losing any other amenities. And that's a big thing to consider, because as we look at the impact of some of these projects overall, there's a give and take in terms of, are we giving up a tennis court? Are we giving up other activity space? In terms of making these things happen. So I want you to keep that in mind as you consider some of these options. As I said, we'll be increasing capacity of the pickleball courts by 2, and all the courts would be next to each other with that. Now, we would anticipate that this would be somewhat of a high cost. It would have somewhat of a long development time, and would limit it, I think, to 2 additional pickleball courts as opposed to the 3 that we have approval for. So we're boxing us in a little bit with that option. One of the important points is if the pro shop is to move within the community center, there's a finite amount of space in the community center.
Usually
So you're
anywhere
giving
from
up
20
something
to
else.
minutes to an hour, but they've got the special presentation today.
Now, I'm going to talk just a little bit because you'll see this reference quite a bit on many of the slides. The current courts we have are what's called a foam membrane. And we have had considerable warranty issues with those courts. In terms of consistent play, the wear of the courts, puddling underneath the surface. And you could think about these courts as almost having a carpet pad underneath the surface, okay? I know I worked with Paul to file a warranty claim with the company that installed those courts a couple of years ago. We weren't successful, but I know I would not support putting in that type of court within Pelican Marsh. Again, these courts, I would recommend being asphalt courts, but that does create a problem that potentially you have different court surfaces now. Might lead to another project in terms of converting these back to asphalt themselves. And one of the reasons that this is a little important for us to be discussing now in the spring is that there is some planned maintenance to the existing pickleball courts. Every 5 years, there's a recoating of the surface that seals the surface and directly improves the bounce on the courts. That's 5-year plan, 5-year schedule is coming up this summer. So it would be nice to know what our long-term plan is before we make a decision to spend that $20,000. $20,000 is probably not a lot considering some of the other alternatives we're looking at, but we probably could defer if we had a longer-term plan to do something else with those courts. Okay. Matt, did you want to add anything in terms of this option or talk at all about, I know you have another slide.
Yeah, we can put up my slide, that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
This is a little complicated, maybe we can zoom in on it.
Do you want this?
What my plan is to relocate the tennis center inside to part of this salon scene right here. We'll have 2 entranceways, and what we'll do is we'll consolidate all of our court sports, where bocce, pickle, and tennis will all accumulate all through here. We'll expand retail because our retail has been doing so phenomenal. And then the next step is a demolition of the men's, women's, and storage area and relocating it 7 feet farther north, right up to the area where we still have a nice walkway. And right next to that, I mean, I don't know how to do this very well. Right next to the men's, women's, and storage area is a new bike facility because, as Paul touched upon, we need more space. We need bikes to start coming here, and it would be great. We maintain the viewing area, but now with tennis court 4 and the 2 new pickleball areas, we add a 2 brand new pickleball courts. But I went a little step further. I think that there's a dynamic that we really need to take a look at. And this is a redesign of the entire area outside of the entranceway walk-in. So what I've done is slid it down a little towards the southeast a little bit. And if you see in the center there is a memorial garden where we touched upon that a little bit earlier, and that's where we can put the brick pavers. And I want a 50-foot flagpole, which will have the American flag, Florida flag, and the Pelican Marsh flag all in one huge flagpole. And then if you see on the sides, those are those black dots. They're kind of tough to see from this angle, but they're going to be Italian cypresses.
Can you magnify that, because I'm halfway back and I can't see. That's gonna get forward, locally magnify the boards and what you're talking about. Man, like walk over.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good. Put your finger on it.
Okay.
That you may have to grab that one.
I will.
Here's the pointer too.
I'll do it this way. So as I touched upon earlier, new restrooms and supply, we move it about 7 or 8 feet north. Women's, men's storage, right next to that right area there is going to be the bike area. And then we have the 2 new pickleball courts, but now we have tennis 4, as I call it, the 2 new pickleball courts, And then, as I touched upon, the Memorial Garden with an American flag, Pelican Marsh flag, Florida flag right there. And then along here and up there, we have just beautiful Italian cypresses there. And then right behind there, because Pickle's noisy, I mean, so I thought about a water feature with two little walkways that come across. That would bring people in, and if we have the check-in, which is over here now, everybody comes past the restaurant. Everybody, I mean, from Bocce to Pickle, everybody comes in, passes here. So I think it's a nice feature. And then down the road, everybody's been asking for a fire pit. So, there'll be a couple walkways in, obviously, down here, here, and there to get to the area. So ultimately, and then these are the three existing palms here, which I think are beautiful, just need to be trimmed a bit. But, I think that this is just my idea. So I don't know if anybody's got any questions. You gotta come up.
Do you want to do it now or do you want to wait?
Oh, you wanna wait?
Wait.
Wait to the end, okay, we're gonna wait.
Yeah, I think if we individually will be here for quite a while.
How do you bring that?
Oh, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Okay, so that was option one. Option two. So the option two is to move the community center parking entrance, to move it out into the parking lot so we could fit two pickleball courts here. Basically what you're doing is, replacing the entrance and making the exit the entrance and then building a new exit here. Once again, no loss of any amenities, we increased pickleball capacity, all the courts are next to each other. Cons, we do think it would be a moderate to high cost, similar to the last option, only room for two pickleball courts. And as I mentioned before, there was a lot of work in terms of exploring our parking capacity with Collier County. So we probably would need to go back and to readdress, especially maybe if we go down a pickleball court, maybe we could get some additional leeway in terms of number of parking spots. But that's gonna be the biggest challenge for this option, is just getting approval from Collier County that we can do it. And you'll see the same item related to the courts that I mentioned before.
There's also an ingress and egress issue coming in through that area where we have to get CDD as well as county.
Right, in terms of the entranceway here.
Correct.
Yes, yes. So, I know, Mark, we have discussed about this, over the weekend. Anything additional you want to add at this time, or?
Well, I can speak later or.
Yeah.
What you're called. Well, do you have any capability of putting this up there now?
Just hold it up.
Well, I said we got an old man, you write it pretty good. Okay. Why am I here? I have only one eye, so I can't play pickleball, I can't play tennis. But I have a lot of experience in land planning. Someone asked me to figure out a way to put four pickleball courts there. I could not. You would lose 16 parking spaces. I said, as long as I'm at it, let me see what the books are. You put two there, you lose 4 spaces. But if you're only building 2 courts instead of 3, you're picking up, you need 3 less spaces. So I'm sure if someone had an office like I used to have, they'll be able to find another spot. Having said that, I don't support this idea. Okay, I'm not here with an agenda to support this idea. You know, as my wife will tell you, I have the disadvantage of being an engineer. So I think of things unemotionally, which drives me crazy. And I'm a numbers guy. Amazingly, some of the assumptions I've made are very close to what the figures you showed up there. I'm told that 250 tennis players, 450 pickleball players.
No,
Well, let me finish.
Yeah.
And 300 who play both.
very good.
Okay, am I right? Okay. So if we would just reassign 200 of those to tennis and 100 to pickleball. In terms of the analysis. It means you have 45% of people playing tennis, 55% are playing pickleball. If you divide the 300 equally, and I have no idea which is right. You have 60% pickleball, 40% tennis. One of the things I think is critically important, which has not been said yet, but you haven't finished, is that whatever you do now in relation to pickleball is going to take up all the parking capacity. And therefore, you're not going to have future options for more pickleball. This is your last shot. Again, I don't play pickleball. Nobody in my family plays pickleball. Nobody in my family has ever played pickleball. I did play tennis. I wasn't good at it. And now I just play music. Okay. So if you add the 3 courts on the west side there, you wind up having 7 pickleball courts and 8 tennis courts.
And Mark's referring to an option we haven't talked to yet.
Pardon me?
Yeah. You're referring to an option we haven't mentioned yet.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you want me to come back later. Keep going, okay. So if you do that, basically the tennis courts are taking up to 53% of the usage and pickleball 46%, 47%. If you go to my plan, which I do not recommend, you've got 57% of tennis courts and 43% pickleball. Now, has everybody been checked for firearms when they came in here? I'm just a numbers guy. If you convert Court 2 to 4 pickleball courts, you wind up with 8 pickleball courts, 7 tennis courts, which yields 47% tennis and 53% pickleball, which pretty much mirrors the idea of a split in people. So again, that's all also, if you look, the tennis growth is now about 11% nationally. Pickleball growth, I've heard a million numbers. I've taken the low end of 25%. So when our residents come in here, they're going to be younger than we are. We're not younger than you. I got kids your age. But us old guys are not. We're not replacing this with old guys. We're getting young people. You got to figure out what that is. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Some of the things that Mark was mentioning, we'll come to in a little bit, and then we can circle back and have a more dynamic conversation. Next slide. Okay, option 3 is about going up with pickleball, building a double-decker pickleball structure so that you can play both above and below. Once again, no decrease any amenities. We increase our pickleball capacity, and the bottom half of these would be weather protected. Some of the cons, this probably would be a relative high cost. I would be concerned about the development time and the fact that while this was under construction, you wouldn't be able to play any pickleball. And it's possible we can get reciprocals with other communities. I know we've done reciprocals for other communities in the past. The bottom level, whatever height we determine, I mean, a lob does come into play in pickleball just as it does in tennis. And as a community, we have to think about aesthetically, are we comfortable with the way it looks? I don't know, is Elliot here at all? No? Okay, so I know he had brought up this concept, and I think I captured all his ideas related to this. Let's move on to option 4. Okay, option 4 is that we add 2 pickleball courts behind tennis court 7. We do have the land to do that back here. There'd be no loss of any amenities. We would increase our pickleball capacity fairly quickly, because it'd be a pretty quick project, probably around the 6 to 8 week, type of, structure. Relatively low cost. The negative, well, the existing pickleball courts are here. The new pickleball courts would be here, so we want to be close to them. Now, other communities have dealt with growth in pickleball in this manner. If you go play at the Vineyards, you'll see that there's 2 courts in this area, 2 courts in this part of the parking lot. You go down below the, past their tennis courts, and there's a couple more courts. Once they're in, people are happy, not such a big deal, but at face value, doesn't look to be the optimal solution. Another con is the proximity to tennis. There's a couple people who referenced the relative noise of pickleball versus tennis. I will say pickleball is a very social game. There is conversation, and if you look at it just from a people perspective, you have 16 people in one area, where in tennis, the same space, you have 4 players if you're playing doubles. So that kind of leads to increased noise as well. You can mitigate that with a fence between court 6 and some kind of sound canvas. If you go out to the basketball courts that we have the small basketball hoop next to the gym. On one side, there's a solid, is that feedback from me too close? I can just back up a little. There's. Thank you, Paul. There's a nice black canvas, looks nice aesthetically, that keeps the noise down a little bit for that the neighborhood on the other side. And as I mentioned, we still have the difference between the different court issues. I just want to highlight one other thing. This does require moving the golf maintenance path that currently exists. The golf club has an easement to bring their maintenance equipment along that path to service the holes that are back there. That's something we've been working very hard to get their comfort level in our ability to move that while they still maintain any access. And I think those discussions are still ongoing. Okay. My slide moved to the left. Option 5 kind of builds on this. So it's really the same as option 4, but it has a longer term vision. And maybe it's not this year, maybe it's not next year, but at some point in the future, as funds become available, as we're able to do it, it looks to then move the existing pickleball courts from where they are today to court 7 and converts those pickleball courts back to a tennis court. Now, when I go play tennis at different facilities, there's oftentimes a nice raised viewing area. We could build a tennis viewing area for courts 1 and 2 here. We could build a waiting area for pickleball between courts 5 and 7. We can continue with the concept of a high fence with the sound canvas that I was referring to mitigate any additional sound. Additionally, under both option 4 and option 5, you have the ability to add an additional court aligned with the ones that we're adding here. And one idea was, when we do that, do it with a dual purpose hitting wall, so that anyone who wanted to practice either tennis or pickleball hitting against the wall would have the ability to do that. So we increase capacity. We don't lose any existing amenities. The initial courts would be relatively low cost, but each one of these would be individual projects to switch the courts out. All the pickleball courts would be consolidated. And if we say we're going to do this in the next year or 2, we probably wouldn't spend maintenance costs on the existing pickleball courts. And we would have a common surface throughout, not only within Pelican Marsh, but a common surface in other communities as well. The cons, well, we still have close proximity to the tennis courts, okay? And we do have to move this golf path. Okay. Next option. Option 6, dual court use for court 2. This involves taking court 2 and converting it to a hard court. You would then be able to use it for tennis or pickleball. They made some very nice portable pickleball nets at this point, some that screw right into the surface and so forth. If you do this, you increase capacity of the pickleball courts by 3 on day 1. And it's relatively low cost to just work on this one court. Some of the cons, you can only play one sport at a time. Okay, so you're either gonna lose pickleball or you're gonna lose tennis, whenever that court's being used for the different purpose. Now, we could, do that with some scheduling, we could try to solve that conflict, but no matter what, there's gonna be scheduling conflicts. And additionally, it's gonna put a strain on the maintenance staff, because they're gonna have to be the ones moving the nets. Now, not only do we have a different surface for pickleball than the rest of the community, but we also have a different surface for tennis as well. Okay, and we'll hold off until the end, Mark, if that's okay. Anything else to add? George, anything else?
Just to mention that, for example, most people don't already know, it's being mostly, not out of the less. So.
Good teacher.
Hard work that we felt like we should take lessons.
Yeah, so what George was saying, that court 2 is predominantly a teaching court, lesson court. So it would have a greatest impact to those individuals taking lessons. Did I paraphrase that correctly?
Yeah, as opposed to never playing.
Real quick, why are you only increasing the capacity by 3, not 4?
Just working within our current variants that we have from Pollock County.
Talking for.
No, This actually is, so. If you're using, the court as a tennis court. Obviously, it's a single court. If you're using it as pickleball courts, now there could be 4 courts in there, right? Because there's the current court, which is a tennis court, that counts as 1 pickleball courts. You would then be adding 3 more pickleball courts. So it wouldn't just be 3 courts, it would be 4 pickleball courts available to play.
I just didn't want to assume that, Steve.
Yeah, I'm just telling you. that's
But you're
what it is.
subtracting,
Yep.
you're subtracting the tennis court. But every time that you go to 4 pickleball courts, you no longer have a tennis court. So you're netting the 3.
This is what I'm trying to say is that the tennis court and the pickleball court cancel each other out. You have 4 courts available for play. There is pickleball, not 3.
You may be able to go directly to 4 courts based on how we adjust a variance or discuss with Pollock County.
They're giving you the ability to have 3 more courts.
Yeah.
And there's already a court there.
Right.
That makes 4 courts.
Right.
So that's just not advocating this, I'm simply saying that's the fact. Go ahead.
Okay, next option.
I think technically we don't need their approval to put temporary courts in.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Should be asked.
Yeah, should be asked. Okay, can you just scroll down a little bit, Paul? Okay, option 7. We could put a rollout surface on court 2 to play pickleball on when we have a need for increased capacity. I actually saw this on a TV commercial this morning. And I think they do this over at the Dunes, if I heard correctly. So you increase your capacity at a very low cost. Now you really have a different surface. This surface is very soft. It's kind of like rolling out a wrestling mat on top, but it's a concept. We would once again have multiple surfaces within the community. When we were, same as the last option, when you use one amenity versus the other, well, you're down that amenity. Scheduling, net maintenance, all the same issues that we've talked about with some of the other options. Next slide. Okay, option 8, it was suggested that we could swap tennis courts 8 and 9 with pickleball court 1 and make pickleball down on this end of our complex with our approved 7 courts, turning this back into tennis. It's possible, maybe we can get a 4th court, then, discuss that. So the pros of that, you increase capacity by 3+ courts right away, all the pickleball courts are together. We've now created more separation from the tennis community, so noise is less of an issue. We don't have to move this maintenance path, and there is a built-in waiting area already between bocce and tennis. There's already a nice brick area here. The cons, it's a medium to high cost, and probably the biggest con is that you are losing net at tennis court if you do that. Any elaboration? Good? Okay. Option 9? There was no elaboration, but there was a lot of grumbling, okay. Option 9, we could build a structure over the existing parking lot and put pickleball courts above that structure. In that case, we wouldn't lose any parking spots. We can convert the pickleball courts back to a tennis court. So you gain additional tennis courts, you increase capacity of pickleball. We could put a roof on it conceptually. This probably be a very high cost. And the challenge will be aesthetically blending it into the look and feel we have for our community. And probably would be a fairly long development time. Okay. Anything else to add? Okay. So those are the 9 options that we've cumulatively have heard. You know, I think at this point, you want to go to next slide. You know, we come to, you know, what is the ask really moving forward? We know that today is kind of like a starting point for us. When someone says the first quarter of a 4-quarter or 5-quarter game, if you're a Kansas City fan. So what I think would be appropriate, and this is just my thoughts, is to solicit from the community. Maybe there's another idea out there that would be worth looking into. Maybe define 30 days, say, if anyone else has any other suggestions, bring it to the foundation board, right? So we have a total population of things to consider. And then at that point, the sitting foundation board, there's probably a little bit different board at that point, but maybe identify through some decision models the pros and benefits, not just for pickleball, not just for tennis, but for the community as a whole, to evaluate maybe 2 or 3 options. And once again, this is just a suggestion, and then let the community decide via survey which one they feel as if fits the needs of the community. I'm pushing for some type of movement by the end of the spring. And once again, part of that is in relative low cost of $20,000, but we'd like to know what our long-term vision is before we go and spend money on the existing courts. That's just my 2 cents on it. Now with that, now we can open up to questions maybe.
So, is this the conclusion of your presentation?
Yeah, everything else I have some discussion. Anyone wants to waste 20 minutes of their time asking about different court surfaces within Southwest Florida, and I can tell you about gel courts and asphalt courts. There's a little bit on that presentation that I'm assuming is going to be distributed. And there's a couple pictures of vineyards in Heritage Bay where they've done different things in terms of adding pickleball courts to their existing footprint.
Why don't we take a look at those pictures, and then I'll ask you to have a seat, and you'll probably be coming right back up there, but you're fit, so it doesn't really not bother you to go back and forth.
So at Heritage Bay, a couple of years ago, they added 2 pickleball courts here. Those of you who have played, they've put a sound barrier. They have a walkway here and a sound barrier between the courts and the tennis courts. So you really don't hear them too much. I would say the materials they use for the sound barrier, I like what we have a lot better. But that's what they've done there. And then once again at Vineyards, those of you who have been to Vineyards to play tennis or pickleball, this is the parking lot. This is the building that they have overlooking some of the pickleball courts. And then they've added additional pickleball courts here. And I actually think this might be a little old because I think they might have added 1 or 2 more pickleball courts here since then. But as you see, you know, they're kind of spread out.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna, thank you, Brian. Very nice.
Thank you, Brian.
At this time, here's the plan. We have, we got here, 3 o'clock. So in my mind, we have about an hour left in this meeting. As I told you, at the outset, we're going to have a number of meetings about the subject. Obviously, we're going to be getting together. No decisions are being made today. So there's no reason to do a marathon today. However, what we're going to try to do now is I'm going to solicit board member comments, and then we will open it up to the community to make comments, ask questions, and I will be going back and referring to these excellent pictures as we talk about these individual plans together. Why don't we move ahead and do that? So board member comments. Pat Kepke.
I would like to thank Brian for a wonderful presentation, particularly the visuals, and I know everybody can hear you. I think for you or for all of us to look at the pros and cons. Obviously, first thing, monetary, but the aesthetics. We have so many people now here who are younger and want to avail themselves of all of our wonderful, wonderful amenities. And I am for pickleball. At my age, I'm afraid, but unless you're my partner, Brian, you can run. But I think you've really done a good job. And I think particularly the new incoming board will make the best decision and for all the people and to keep it in line with our finances. Thank you.
Nathaniel.
I would like to clarify one vocabulary word that Brian accidentally used incorrectly, because some people worry a lot about the word assessment. The way the bylaws are written is that if we choose to spend money on a project that is more than $250,000, we have to get a vote from the owners. But that's not the same as an assessment. Assessment's where you have to send us money. We did build a restaurant for over $1 million with no assessment. What we did, remember, I went over the financials and I pointed out the capital fund. This fund gets all its money from resale fees after we have packed the reserve account. And so what we do, what option you might have, or the future board might have, is to choose an option that is more than 250,000 and maybe ask permission from the owners to do it, yet not send them a bill, just wait until the capital fund has the money from the resale fees. So choosing an expensive option or a moderately expensive option doesn't mean you have to write a check necessarily.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify one thing. I think it would be a good idea, Brian, your presentation was phenomenal, by the way. That we should probably try to move the timeline on decisions to April 30th before we lose pretty much 50% of the population. That happened. Just an idea.
Anyone else? Okay, well, I have a few comments. As you can probably appreciate, it is the job of the board to represent the entire community of Pelican Marsh, not just the tennis players or just the pickleball players, but everybody who lives here. And as such, whenever we start talking about really big ticket items that cost a lot of money, this is the people's money, we have to think about that. And as Nathaniel pointed out, for the documents stipulate that for any kind of project that's over $250,000, we have to ask permission from regardless of where the money comes from, we have to ask permission from the owners to do that. Under 250, that is not the case. So that's one kind of data point. I do believe that the board, this is my own personal belief, although I know it's shared by the majority of the board. I do believe that taking away amenities or parts of amenities is a difficult and probably a last resort kind of move for a board to make. Removing a tennis court so that we can put pickleball courts on it will materially change the nature of the tennis program here at Pelican Marsh. We know that there are times of the year where tennis players can't get on a court. We know there's a lot of times of the year pickleball players can't get on a court. So how do we solve this problem without disadvantaging another group? So I guess the idea here is that if we think about the way and I understand many of you, well, probably not many of you, but some of you don't play tennis or pickleball. Most of you probably do. So you're intimately aware of all the stuff I'm talking about here. The nature of the tennis program at Pelican Marsh, speaking about tennis now, is that there is a significant number of people who don't actually play tennis in groups or on teams. They play their games only within the context of the teaching program. They do clinics, they take lessons. And so it's an integral part of the program. We have two pros, a head professional and a director of tennis who give lessons here. And I think that when you look at the data that looks at court access and court utilization, what you see is that if you remove a court, you're pretty much removing the teaching court certain times of the year, because the access requirements, the demand for court time is so extreme that we would end up taking away much of the teaching program here, probably losing one of our teaching pros and ending up in a situation where we were scrambling for tennis space, even times of the year where there are empty pickleball courts out there. We know that pickleball courts aren't used 100% of the time, 12 months of the year. We know that when Brian showed his excellent figures earlier, that they were from the first quarter, the high season, when things are rip roaring here, everybody's in the community. And we know that other times of the year, things are less busy across the amenity spectrum. I just think that it is I'm going to repeat myself, it's a last resort for the board to be considering taking away part of a long-established and significant amenity from the community in order to try to get a fix for a problem that may be able to be fixed another way. So I'm going to encourage everyone to kind of think about how we can do this without taking away a tennis court. That's number one. Number two, when we consider big projects, any of these projects that are over $1 million or 2 million, whatever it may be, we don't actually have, we have some eyeball estimates on some of these bigger projects. And we know that because of the pieces of the project, we know how much it would roughly cost because we've had some planning done in this regard. I believe that the big project requires people who don't play pickleball in Pelican Marsh to approve the project. Now, people who don't play pickleball are the majority of the people in Pelican Marsh. And I think that if we can avoid doing all of the expensive preparatory work and planning work on a project like that, before placing it in front of a community, which is largely not going to benefit from the amenity that we're putting in, we should try to think about, is there a way we can do it without costing a lot of money? I mean, obviously the cheapest way is a lot of money, but it's so, we believe it's worth it. We know we need pickleball courts here. It's just not a question of relevance. So I think those are the two things I'd like everybody to kind of think about as we work our way through this. I think it is best if we find a way that does not take away an amenity from people who live here and have lived here and for many, many years, and who want to come here because we've got an outstanding tennis program. And B, if there's a way to avoid spending a pile of money on a transformative program that gives us, at the end of the day, 2 pickleball courts, we should try to look at those ideas preferentially. And those are my thoughts on that. So I'm going to open it up to the community. Who's number one? Madam. Come on up, Adam. Thank you.
Can we get a copy of the slides you did?
I think it'll be foundation record, part of the minutes, that correct, Paul?
Yeah, and we can put it on the website.
I did it on the website for you.
Thank you.
So just to remind everybody, as you come forward, please state your name and your community and speak into the microphone. And because there are so many people here who are likely to want to speak today, we're going to give you one chance. And then if we get through everybody and you still have something to say, we're going to get back to you. Who's next? Yes, ma'am. Come forward, please, and state your name and your community.
Very quick question. In the presentation.
I'm sorry, can you please state your name?
Okay. Deb Solomon, La Chateau. Is that good enough? Okay.
So,
All right, one simple question. What I haven't heard in any of the discussion today is how does the expansion of Goodlet Frank affect some of these renderings and plans going forward?
That's a great question. Thank you. So the proposed expansion of Goodwood Frank is slated to occur to the west, away from us, and not to the east, and afford more encroachment, excuse me, on an already limited area. So that, the plans, however, for that project have not been developed. This means that, I mean, could they change the plans? I mean, the plans don't even exist yet. So this is a project that's some years in the future. The starting of the planning for it is some years in the future. We don't know, but what we do know is that the Transportation Department of the county has been emphatic that the expansion will happen to the west.
And one other thing about that is if we see the hard wall over here, which means the big paver wall, they're not touching that. They're going over to the land side, which Steve touched upon. It is to the west. And we were in a meeting and it looks like at earliest 26, 27 at the earliest that it's gonna occur.
Yeah, they're gonna be replacing that concrete bridge over there, but that's
Both of them.
way down, way down. Cindy Loris?
Hi, Cindy Villarosa, Ravenna. I think dropping this thought that we would lose a pro is really not correct. And I think that you shouldn't do that. We have so many ideas up there, so many great ideas, and scaring people with this is not right. So I think that you saying that when we have no facts behind it, nothing has been said about that, it is not appropriate here right now. So I think most of the ideas that have come out have just been increasing space, increasing time, and not losing anything. You yourself had said losing anything. You and I have gone back and forth over the years. And so I think, let's not put facts out there that have not been warranted. And right now, let's just see where we can go. But saying that we're gonna lose a pro, I think is really, we're gonna start scaring people, and that's gonna cause more problems. So,
Well, thank you. Is Johan in the room?
Yeah, I was gonna ask.
Johan, can we have you up front, please? I'd like to have your thoughts on this matter.
Yeah.
Everywhere, I love it, Hi, my name is Johan. I live in Naples. I love long walks on the beach. You do yoga? Tennis and pickleball. Questions?
So, the question that was just raised here is it fear mongering? Do we think that removing a tennis court will has the potential to change the tennis program in a negative way significantly? And how likely might that be?
I mean, that's a difficult question to ask specifically without some previous experience in reducing an amenity. But for me, I love the idea that you guys are all in this room trying to gather community support for something that's very necessary in this community, right? So I love the fact that we're talking about different options. I love the fact that we're trying to gather community support for an amenity that is bursting at the seams. Do I think that taking a court away could impact the tennis program? Absolutely. Do I think we need more pickleball courts? Absolutely. So it's a matter of weighing the two against each other. Unintended consequences are hard to measure sometimes. So I don't know specifically what the impact would be, but if you take a tennis court away, my suspicion is that you basically flip-flop what you have now. You'd have a tennis program that would be bursting at the seams and a pickleball program that would be busy, but kind of where tennis is now. And that's just a ballpark guess on my part. So I guess I kind of fall in the middle. My whole thing is I want you guys to all find common ground in growing this facility and make it as a happy playground.
I will say, my own defense, that, what I was actually saying, I'm not sure I said it clearly, was that this is a last resort. I think we consider this a last resort for the reasons that I stated. It doesn't mean that it's never gonna happen. It doesn't mean that it's impossible. It means that I hope that the board, the next board, will be looking at this with an eye toward avoiding the two problems that I see here. And that's really all I said. I'm not telling you that I am advocating against any particular plan, but rather that I'm just hoping people think about it with regard to what the downsides are for everybody, the entire community.
I'm also hoping that this conversation will stimulate another idea or two. I had somebody come up to me this morning who suggested that we take that space between tennis and pickleball away, shift the pickleball courts over towards tennis, and just take the sidewalk without really encroaching into the parking lot. So there's idea number 10 for your consideration, right? And so that's another thought. And so I think I'm hoping that this conversation, as it spreads throughout the community, will stimulate some additional thought processes, and some ideas on how to fund it. I would love to call this the Nathaniel Monk's Pickleball Center and build 2 stories. I know Nathaniel has a $5 million check waiting to spend.
Right in the check.
But seriously, I think having these discussions hopefully will stimulate some ideas and some thoughts on how we can, as a group, solve the problem of playground.
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
And not putting you on the spot, but if we increase the number by 2 rather than 3 with your recent idea.
Not my idea.
No. I mean,
Yeah.
that you just suggested, we were increasing it by 50%. Do you think that would be adequate?
It's a start, right? It's a huge start.
I think that there's something interesting about a lot of what we're talking about, and that is that the board did a hell of a job. They really did on getting the approval for the additional 500 square feet. So, I mean, that alone was a project and a half.
Agreed.
Yeah, so we just have a small campus, guys. There's no other way to put it.
Yeah, but I love the fact that this is being discussed in an open forum and not too much behind the scenes, right? So I think this is healthy for the community. For what it's worth.
Okay, thank you.
I gotta run, by the way, I got cardio.
Don't worry about it. Sir?
Hey.
Sir?
Sorry, thank
Sure.
you, I appreciate that. Angelo Scoleri, Marsh Lanes. First, I'd like to congratulate Brian for an excellent low tone presentation, unbiased. It was terrific. One of the best I've seen. Second, Matt, your idea was terrific. I'd like to see you pursue it with a better drawing. There's some installation there.
Angelo, I used to have CAD, now it's $900 a year now, so I didn't.
And thirdly, I know you kicked around a lot of things, but over the last couple of years, I never heard anybody mention the ground where the shed is. You mentioned ground adjacent to court 7 and 9. And I don't know if that's not big enough because you have the turn. But also maybe the pathway, which could be eliminated. So maybe that could be taken a look at to see if you can convert court 3 to pickleball and give 3 back, or give the pickleball back to tennis. And then add pickleball courts where the shed is and down. And if we own the ground adjacent to court not 6, but 7 and 9, and we're not going to use any of that for pickleball, can we make that parking? Pull up vertically, in other words, east and west against that.
Thank you. So a quick answer to these questions in reverse order. So there's no room for, well, no, let's start with parking. The county will not allow any parking over in that area, no legal parking. It's not zoned for parking. There is no legal parking allowed behind the tennis courts. The overflow parking that we use is kind of wink, wink, nod, nod parking. We don't do it legally. And nobody, is bothering us about it, but we cannot put parking spaces over there.
There were accidents.
I'm sorry, what?
There were accidents.
So you want to come forward because I can't hear you.
I was saving my time for something else, but, this issue of parking is, Richard Benson, I'm, live in Portofino, lived here a long time. The reason I mentioned this, Steve, is if the parking's legal, that's great. If the parking's not legal, then what liabilities do we face if there's an accident or something? That's a question. I don't need to give an answer, but I think it's something that should be considered for one thing. But now that I've got the podium, I appreciate the thinking of not taking away amenities. I think that's really important. If we had a long-term plan, we wouldn't be considering things like tearing down bathrooms that we just put money into, or we wouldn't be taking down potentially Court 2, which we just resurfaced, and we wouldn't be tearing up necessarily pickleball courts that were soft surfaces at the time. But basically, I think the question we have here is, how do we make everybody happy? The parking spots we talk about, we have approval to not change anything. But when we took away the original tennis court and added pickleball, which is the first attraction so that we could add something, the board spent a lot of money, Paul can tell us the number, to add 20 additional parking spots. We reconfigured the whole parking lot. It was a significant change. So we would have parking to take the differential that we were going to have with 4 more pickleball courts. Since that time, we now have a restaurant. We have a tremendous bocce program that's growing like crazy. And as people get older, bocce is probably going to grow even faster. Those things need to be taken into account. We have an active Mahjong group that plays here. We have an active canasta group. We have active Bible study groups. We have a big demand for parking. And you say we have a waiver, but you can't park in a waiver. You can only park in a real parking spot. So if we have waivers, that's good. But if the waivers can't be used, then we're acting in a way that's negative to all the residents that utilize this. This is our common area. This is a common area for everybody. It is our front door. If we botch it up with some of these aesthetic ideas that I think were somewhat unattractive, then that's detrimental to the community. So that's all I have.
Thank you. I will say, in response to Rich's comments, that the board has been struggling. I mean, way before any of us were on the board was struggling with parking here because WCI and their infinite wisdom did not put in enough room for us to have a campus that can support a community of this size. So every year they're struggling with the lack of space. As far as parking goes, we, over the last 3 years, have come up with some wingnut ideas like having a group buy of golf carts and putting in some golf cart parking spaces and encouraging people to drive low-speed vehicles around Pelican Marsh as opposed to cars, thereby increasing our parking lot size. This is one idea, you know, that having an e-bike program, having a bigger bike parking area. And there are a lot of residents who can't ride bikes, but they can all ride golf carts. So we're continuing to think about this. And these are, Rich's comments are absolutely spot on. We have continued trouble with parking here. It's not going to get better. And we must spend some time and energy being creative about how to solve that problem.
One of the challenges also with that, Steve, is that a golf cart is considered a car. And it takes a space.
Right, but the space required for a golf cart is smaller. A low-speed vehicle is smaller than it is for a regular car. Sure. We looked into this with the engineer, and it's something we'll continue to kind of bang around. Yes. Who's next? Yes, sir.
Omar Carey from Louisville.
When I looked at all the options, I was concerned that they all seem like a short-term solution to a problem that's gonna get bigger and bigger. There's gonna be more need for pickleball courts in the future. And I think that the options that I saw, although thought out well and demonstrated well, I think crowd the common space and are detrimental to the aesthetics of our community. And I had heard it a while back that there was a possibility of acquiring more land across Goodlette Frank. And no one has.
There is no possibility of acquiring more land anywhere. No.
And is there any thought, do any of the golf clubs entertain the idea of maybe a pickleball area in their negotiation?
That's a good one. Number 11, how much is Mega Million?
Well, the reason I'm laughing is because we went through, when we were going through the parking issue and thinking about where we could possibly put parking, put more pickleball. We had that retention pond, the irrigation pond across Pelican Marsh Boulevard, all set up as a pickleball facility, and it was going to be awesome. But of course, the golf course wasn't interested in giving it to us. They're not interested in doing anything remotely resembling giving us land or making land available or selling us land, and it's just even their parking lot that is not ever fully utilized, or most of the time isn't fully utilized. I mean, it just isn't a possibility. We've been through that, and not just us, but generations of board members have been through this. There is no possibility of finding more land in Pelican Marsh, contiguous with Pelican Marsh.
And it truly was an act of God when I did the bocce course to get the easement from them on a 99-year lease. Right out here.
Right.
Just to get 8 feet from them.
Bocce, by the way, would like another court.
They would.
Yeah, some people agree that it's a short-term solution. We're gonna botch up the aesthetics and then have to find another solution.
Well, let's just talk about that for a second. So we have 4.5 acres. We're not gonna get any more ever. So the question is, do we just say we've done our last infrastructure development here at Pelican Marsh for all time, there will be no more amenities built? Or do we try to, we have to balance needs? Now, you are correct. Some of these ideas are aesthetically unpleasing, which is a subjective statement, but it's, I think a lot of people have voiced that opinion. They're worried about what's this gonna look like. And I think the challenge is giving people more infrastructure without detracting from the vibe that's Pelican Marsh, the thing that we all love about being here. It's so beautiful. And we all want it to stay that way. We want to continue to support our home values. We don't want to do anything to damage that. We don't want to put some ugly thing in the middle of, which is why going vertically is probably, maybe it's not such a good idea. But there are no easy solutions to this, and it's an either or kind of thing at this point. We don't have any land. There's no more land. So.
Now, wasn't there some conversation about conservation land?
Yes, there was. And allow me to respond to that. There are conservation easements on all of that land, and the county and state are disinterested, I should say, in making any of that available to us. Some of it is stormwater, most of it is stormwater removed, and can't be moved, can't be fiddled with. But we have looked into, and board members before us have looked and talked to the county, talked to the state, talked to the environmental protection people. I mean, there's been a lot of work that's gone on behind the scenes on just this issue. And I am here to tell you that there is nothing available to us. We had a dalliance with the last golf course general manager and the chairman of the CDD around putting some employee parking across the street in the CDD area. Revamping that whole area would be very expensive. It would give us a tiny number of spaces. We stopped looking into it when we were awarded the administrative parking reduction, allowing us to do our infrastructure development without it. There's a new general manager over there now. I don't think there's a lot of enthusiasm to have us over there. And it is, I don't think that it's really a viable opportunity at this time. That was it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I see a hand way back there. Way back.
My name is Paul Petnaro, I live at the Estates, and I want to show my support for several comments which were made today. In particular, by this lady here, I think it was absolutely atrocious the way the presentation went when we talked about getting rid of one court and basically getting rid of Victor. We're talking about a human being who makes his living here. And if that's the direction you want to go, I think we should do it behind closed doors. Not let this basically.
Well, see, let me respond to you, Paul, right away. I'm sorry that it came across that way. That isn't what was said. That's not what
Well,
is meant.
whoever George is back there, that's basically what George was saying.
I don't know what he's saying. I don't know who George is. I'm not sure what you're talking about. But what I'm going to tell you is, to repeat for everyone's benefit, we're not saying that this is what we want to do. This is the last thing I want to do. No, people want
Well, I
this.
understand you.
No. The entire board, this is the last thing they want to do. Nobody on the board, nobody on this board, reasonably entertain such an idea. This is as I said, this was my opinion, and I'm not trying to speak for anyone else, but I think that this would be, taking away tennis court would be a bad move for the tennis program, obviously. But I don't advocate it. I don't advocate losing an employee like Victor. We all value the tennis program here, the teaching program, and
he teaches pickleball.
And he teaches pickleball as well, and so does yoga. They both teach this, I understand this, but the bulk of their income, the bulk of Victor's income comes from teaching tennis, and whatever reduces that is something that I don't think we should entertain. Is that clear?
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Is that clear, George, wherever you are? Yes, ma'am.
Steve, while the next person's is coming up, I'd like to address that one issue. Go ahead and help her figure out which one she is.
Okay, wait a second. Paul, do you have more?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. One moment. Go ahead, Paul.
I learned a lot today with the comments you made earlier. In terms of, it seems to me like there is absolutely no long-term planning, and we have a white elephant in this room. Fitness facilities. What's the future of fitness facilities? Do you guys ever go in there morning, afternoon, packed full? Especially since you replaced all the.
Yeah.
So if you have a
You're
limitation.
speaking to the mic so they can hear you, Paul.
If you have a limitation when it comes to space, what's the plan in the future for potentially increasing the footprint of the fitness facility?
Okay, let me respond to that. Do you have anything in addition to this?
Yes.
Okay, good. So this next question is, what about expansion of the physical footprint of the fitness center? Because we do not have the ability to expand the outside dimension of the fitness center, of the community center, more than 500 square feet that has been given to us by the county. We know that big redesign of the fitness center has to happen internally. So we have had plans drawn up, the board last year, year before, had plans drawn up to do just that, to expand the fitness center. This would require removing the men's and women's locker rooms, not removing them entirely, but turning them into restrooms, getting rid of all that wasted space over there, taking out interior walls, rebuilding to the extent that we had to for bearing walls, and expanding the fitness center in that direction. So toward administration. And this is an expensive undertaking, and it is part of our, I would say, medium-term plan. Because this is something, when we thought about how we were going to manage the infrastructure development here at Pelican Marsh in response to the county's awarding us of this administrative parking reduction, we talked in terms of, as a tentative plan, putting in 2 pickleball courts, expanding the fitness center, putting in a 3rd pickleball court at some point in the future. This is kind of the thinking, because you want to kind of spread the largesse around a little bit. And we understand there's a need to expand the fitness center, especially this time of year. So, but it all can't be done at once, unless we find sugar daddy. So we're kind of looking at this from what can be done in the short term and what must be relegated to our capital fund being replenished over time by the resale capital assessment fees that we bring in.
Well, I really appreciate your last comment, which is what can be done in the short term. There is one more solution. Do nothing and use the 16 courts which are going to be put up like Pelican Bay, which all Collier residents will be able to use, which gives you time to really go back to the drawing board and look at all the options, including the medium-term possibility that you referred to, which obviously you guys have been involved with that we have no idea about. And I think there needs to be a complete presentation made to all of us residents that encompasses not just the tennis, but the pickleball, the parking, because as someone said, all activities here are more and more popular.
Very
From
true.
morning till night.
Very true.
And I think parking is even more important with a couple of additional pickleball courts. Because you can't ask us residents to go park at Pelican Bay, but you can ask us to go play tennis and pickleball over there at Pelican Bay. And lastly, I hate those Band-Aid measures. And unfortunately, Brian, I love your presentation, but I think it is nothing but a bunch of Band-Aids. Every option which is above the $250,000 level, the way I read the presentation, was killed before it even made it onto the paper. Everybody's trying to look for something that can be done in this $250,000 range. It might be a smart idea, perhaps in the short term, and I said, I don't think it is. In the long term, it might be another $250,000 that we flush down the toilet. That's what I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Much appreciated. Yes.
Leanne Stevens, I live in Claremont, and I'm, have been on the pickleball advisory committee for a couple of years, so we have gone over all these ideas and appreciate the new ideas, because people come up with stuff I never thought of. I've talked to several of the board members, several other people here. I've heard the term long-term planning bandied about a bit, and short-term solutions, and, Band-Aid, that's a good thought, and I'm a person who always likes to look at the long term. If we can't do it now, where do we want to be in 5 years? However, in looking at that, a lot of these options are creative ideas, but really probably not feasible, both from a financial, an aesthetic, a timeline possibility, and parking is an issue here, but that's not going to go away. And bottom line is, we really do need more courts. The teams can't get court time for their practices. People, anecdotally, I know somebody who has been renting here for 2 years, was planning to build here, and said to me just a couple weeks ago, we're not building here. We're gonna build on, somewhere else, because we can't get court time, and they're pickleball players. Asking us to go to other facilities. Well, let me tell you, we just played a match away from here, and we ran into a couple of people who live here in Pelican Marsh who are members of the facility that we went to. We were at Quail Creek and West and stuff. Quail Creek, they're members over there because they can't play pickleball here. They can't get court time. And I'm not making it up, 2 different people that were over there playing because they can't play here. So nobody disagrees. I know you all agree that we need more pickleball courts. And in looking at all these solutions, which Brian has done a great job of presenting, and thank you, Brian, for that, I have come to the conclusion that the one most logical solution, which gives us a short-term and a long-term plan, is the idea of putting 2 courts beside court 7. And I realize that does create, close proximity to tennis. That is a sacrifice that we will all have to figure out how to deal with. It's not ideal, but all the places we go are dealing with this issue and they all have courts that are separated. Court, we play right next to tennis courts. It just happens. And putting up the sound barrier will help. By putting the 2 courts there, it's one of the least expensive options. It's one of the fastest options. I do not believe it's a Band-Aid. It gets us courts potentially before next season, which will eliminate so much of the problem. And let me tell you something, the pickleball players absolutely do not want to lose Victor either. None of us want to lose or impact our pros here. We love them, they're great. Adding 2 pickleball courts over there allows, it's not taking away a tennis court, it's allowing a teaching court, you know, they can be, because they're impacted right now, let me tell you, they can't teach in the mornings. I mean, it's impossible to get lesson time with Victor. I have to fight for it every week, and every week our team lesson is like a different time, because that's all we can get in. So adding those 2 courts right now, it's not a Band-Aid. It's the beginning of a long-term solution, because eventually you could add a 3rd court there, which gives us now 7 pickleball courts, which is, you know, way better than what we have now. And then eventually, again, looking down the road, long-term, you could trade court 7 for court 1 that we're on now and get all the pickleball courts together in that area. And yes, we gotta put up a sound barrier, we gotta do something, but now we've got all the pickleball courts together again, and we've got the tennis courts up here and potentially, you know, with some stands and some viewing stands for tennis. So I just wanted to say, to me, looking at all these solutions and having lots of sleep over thinking about this, that's the one I vote for. Thank you.
Thank you.
As you coming forward, I would like to reiterate something Brian suggested, and I'm hoping the board agrees with. Brian suggested that, and I want to say this now because it's so easy for us to get onto really liking or hating an idea. And it's way too early to do that. Brian suggested in his presentation that the board get experts, engineers, quotes, bids, and find the best several ideas, narrow them down, and then maybe send them to a survey, get you involved again, and then maybe send the final one even to an election, you know, where the owners have to get involved. So it would be good not to get too emotional about one idea or another idea because we're so early, but also thank you for being involved, being here, but we need you to be involved again later with a survey, later maybe with a ballot. So we're so early in the process that it would be bad to get emotions out this early.
Okay, hi, Claire Brett, Troon Lakes. Has anybody ever looked into the feasibility of leasing some space in these defunct shopping centers for an all year round indoor pickleball court? You could move exercise over there or something like that. I mean, there's a lot of vacant property.
Yes, well, where True Fashionista is in the Vanderbilt collection, we looked into it, they wanted $25 a square foot.
Oh, wow.
It's a huge amount of money.
Yeah, it's almost 28,000 square feet.
Right.
Okay.
This is the first thing we did because there's no land, right? So we wanted something that was close.
Yeah.
And something that was big so that we had enough height. And this place looked pretty good, but the money they wanted was ridiculous. You know?
All right, and the second question is, are you allowed to go build up on top of the community center if you wanted to?
No.
No, okay.
So here's the problem with that. Number one, when they built the community center, they did not put the structural steel that was be necessary to have a second floor on it. That's one problem. Number two, and this is really the big problem, we don't have the parking to support the square footage. You need 3 parking spaces for every 200 square feet under air. You know, putting a second floor would require a whole new parking lot. We don't.
And part of that is the cost for structured parking or a parking deck is $35,000 a space.
All right.
Yeah. But thank you.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
My name is Mark Lewis and I live in Ravenna. I first have a question regarding option number 8, I think, Steve, you said at one point that if we converted a tennis court to temporary pickleball courts, it could be 4 pickleball courts. Would the same thing apply if we had pickleball courts on courts, tennis courts 8 and 9? In other words, would we end up with 8 pickleball courts? If
So you're talking a temporary,
no, I'm talking about building 8 pickleball courts on courts 8 and tennis courts 8 and 9. Converting the existing pickleball courts to an oversized teaching tennis court like we used to have before.
So,
Dual use, are you guys saying a dual use court and a pickleball court, or both being pickleball courts? I didn't understand.
he's talking about.
Talking about
8,
full
9.
use pickleball courts on courts 8 and 9.
Right, so yes, you would end up
You'd be
with
eliminating 2.
you would, that's the answer to your question is you would end up with 8 pickleball.
So, we've heard a lot of discussion about a long-term solution. My personal opinion is 10 years from now, 6 pickleball courts is not gonna be enough, or I think 8's gonna be a lot better than 6 or 7. And so I think Brian mentioned Vineyards, where they expanded, and then I know for a fact, because I've played there several times, then they expanded again. That's not cost effective, and it's a sign of the time that pickleball is expanding, and the need is likely to be greater than we think it is right now. In addition, it solves the solution of the fact that the surface on our existing courts, frankly, is just not very good, and you create 8 courts, all the same surface and a good surface. And you'd have, again, those 2 tennis courts that Victor and Johan have traditionally used in the past before late 2019. They're both in the same place, they'd be next to each other. They're 2 big courts that they could use for teaching, and I thought back in the day, they were reserved for teaching, so they got preference, and then we have our 2 pros who can, do a lot of teaching during the morning and the afternoon.
my wife runs all the check-in at the Vineyards from 8 to 12 every single day. And they hate the bifurcated pickleball courts.
This isn't bifurcated. This is
I understand.
courts next to-
Yeah, I just wanted everybody to know that.
Thank you very much for your.
Another just thought is, there was some discussion about the maintenance of the existing courts. Can we defer the maintenance on those courts? Why spend the money if we're gonna do something and it might involve, doing something to those courts or moving courts elsewhere?
Yeah, of course we can.
And, yeah, the other comment that I would make is I'm on a Pelican Bay advisory, committee, and, while I don't know a lot about what's going on, I know that they haven't started building the courts yet, so any solution where we're taking into consideration Pelican Bay, I think that's a little bit risky, because it's gonna be a while before I think those courts can be built.
Thank you.
Hey, now that you're on that committee, how many are actually open to the public? It's not all 16, right?
There are 20 courts that are going to be constructed, and it's to be determined. They're going to be, constructed by the Pelican Bay Foundation. So Pelican Bay residents are effectively paying $6 million for those courts. They would like them to be bifurcated, so it's 10 reserved exclusively for Pelican Bay residents, and the rest for everybody else. It doesn't have to be county residents, it's anybody else who happens to be in Collier County. But that is still to be determined, because in my view, it doesn't make sense if you have 20 courts and there are fewer Pelican Bay residents one day that only, that 2 or 3 of the Pelican Bay courts don't get used, or if there are fewer county and visitors on a particular day, then those courts don't get utilized. But that's something that the county and the Pelican Bay Foundation are gonna discuss, and they're gonna figure that out. But once it opens, it's gonna be operated by Pelican Bay. So.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Just for your information, I'm going to adjourn this meeting in about 10 minutes, and if anybody wants to stick around and chat, that's fine, but we're going to have more meetings. Obviously, this is just the first step in the conversation. So we can hear from a few more folks, and then we're going to call it an afternoon, and thank you very much. Yes, sir. You. Oh, wait, Rich Benson, you've already spoken. Yeah. No, thank you. Yes, over here, David. David.
Dave Backward, True Lakes. Nice job, everybody, today. Just a couple of thoughts on what I saw and for what it's worth, with the first idea, I like the little water bed that you put there. I like the water bed that was in the design. Is it possible to further abate noise from coming to the restaurant? Put a little fountain in there, that ambient noise.
Yeah, when you have movement, you have ambient noise coming through, which knocks down the ping of the pickle.
So that's just a suggestion. And number two, when I looked at the visual, it looked like the two courts that we were adding are taking up more space than where we have the 4 courts right now in terms
It's
of
not
their
just this court space, though, it's the outside area, outside the lines of the court.
Okay.
So that you have the fencing, you have to have the room for the fencing, whatever lighting, you know, that, all that stuff.
So don't we have that on the existing pickleball court?
What?
The fencing, the lighting?
We're gonna have to put fencing around the new pickleball courts.
Right, okay, well, all right.
And it wasn't really to scale, like I
Okay,
was saying earlier, so, yeah.
That caught my attention.
Yeah.
I would just say, since you found a way to work with the county to get some relief with these parking credits, maybe don't be too quick to dismiss the idea of pursuing the country club again or the Southwest Water Management area. If they are possibly of a like mind to get some kind of relief. Thank you.
I've done a lot of work in the shopping center industry. I built Coconut Point. And there's something called a parking ratio. And we qualified under a different type of environment. And if we're able to push the envelope a little bit more, we may be able to get 8 more spaces. But it's gonna be an uphill battle after we've battled for over 6 months just to get what we got, so.
Yeah, I think we have to be careful about using terms like parking credits. The report from the county doesn't consider parking credits, and so we've asked our consultants to re-engage with the county to clarify this for us, but if the reading of the report that they sent us doesn't give me the impression that there's going to be any leeway in terms of, well, we didn't use this space, so can we get credit for that space? And I don't think there's any of that that's going to be available, but right? So this is why we're having an expert look into it for us.
It's called the technical term is parking ratio. It's not credits.
Anybody else? Yes.
Dave Wallace at Montclair. In the past, there was the idea of using the land that we own on the far side of Goodlet Frank to put more tennis courts there. Is there any possibility of that, or does the
No.
expanding to the west eliminate use of that land at all?
It's not really useful now because of the distance from the water and the slope. And, the fact that Rufino would lose their minds, if we started building over there.
They would have to give their permission.
And you wouldn't get it, can I just tell you? So, yeah, but the fact that they're moving Goodlet to the west, that makes that sort
Too
of
much uncertainty.
null issue, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. Yes, yes, sir.
Hi, Scott Wallace, Augusta Drive. I just want to speak up in favor of a couple of principles that I think I hear you all in agreement on. That you don't want to lose any tennis courts. You don't want to lose any amenities. And the second is that I think you want to keep things contiguous. So I'm not particularly attracted to the idea of having pickleball over here at what used to be court 1 and then several pickleball courts way over next to court 7. If there is a way, it feels like a Tetris game or something. You need an engineer to take what you've got and rejigger it so that you've got 7 or maybe 8 pickleball courts together and the tennis courts together, and don't lose any tennis courts, and don't lose any tennis pros, of course. But those are the two principles that I hear and that I want to reinforce. I'm a tennis player and a pickleball player, so I want to keep both constituencies fulfilled and happy.
Understood. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. I will say, about that the question of contiguous ball courts, it is possible that down the road, we're going to be faced with a choice, and it's going to be non-contiguous pickleball courts or no pickleball courts. And then I wonder, I don't think the community, certainly the board, would not vote for no pickleball courts. So we don't know yet how this is going to work out, how it's going to shake out. But I will tell you that making the pickleball courts contiguous is going to cost money, and the community will have something to say about that. Okay, yes, in the back.
Oh, we've got online, I don't do that, I don't know.
George Augustus Montclair. I just want, first of all, thank Brian. Yeah, oh, I gotta get closer than make it. George Augustus Montclair. I want to first again thank Brian, as everybody else said, great presentation. So great, this did turn into a firestorm, and everybody sounds pretty reasonable and in agreement on many of the principles. I just want to say that before we go ahead, I want to ask the board, before you go ahead with any under $250,000 ideas, that you first go through and get quotes and more information on the quote unquote more expensive ideas. Yeah, they certainly look more expensive, and I'm sure they are more expensive. But they are also, I think most people would agree, better solutions in many of the cases, particularly in moving the pro shop. And that is the other thing I just wanted to mention to consider, that that pro shop doesn't necessarily need to be destroyed in order to be moved. People move buildings down here in Florida, and as a concrete building, there are no basements. It's just something to consider that could bring that number down to something more reasonable. Maybe something that's already in our coffers, or maybe something that is a very minor increase in cost.
George, was it in your driveway? There's nowhere else.
You live in a condo, so it's shared. Yeah, that's what I'm. No, but I think it's a great idea, and I do love the drawing, by the way, Matt. It was.
Online. Yeah, okay, we've got a question online here, and this will be our last question. And the question, which I've lost now, is basically asking about the possibility of negotiating with the CDD about putting employee parking across the street, thereby improving our situation over here. I think I touched on this earlier. So everyone knows what the answer is. And we will, this person maybe doesn't, so I'll just say, as things stand right now, we can't do it. That may change, we'll see. Okay, well, thank you, everybody, for joining us, and we will have another meeting in the near future where we can get together and hopefully as more information becomes available, we can give you more information. I have a motion to adjourn, please. Second? All in favor? Aye. Yeah.